Yeah, I know NORPAC, sure.
All right,
I
we
think,
will
I
begin.
think we may have bought some stuff from
Thank you, members and observers. We have 3 bills we are hearing today, so we're opening the Natural Resources Committee, and we do have a quorum, so will you call the roll?
Skinner.
Here.
Gilmore.
Here.
Brownlee. Chesbro. De Leon. Hill.
Here.
Huffman. Knight.
Here.
Logue.
Here.
All right, we will start with Assemblymember Logue's bill, AB 118, and as has been the practice in this committee, we will hear from 3 witnesses in favor, 3 witnesses in opposition. They will be given 3 minutes each, but we will also allow other people here in support or in opposition to the bill just to come up and indicate their name and affiliation, if there is one, and what if pro or con to the bill. So, Assemblymember Logue, we will let you begin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I appreciate this. The bill that is submitted before you is a bill to suspend AB is called AB 118 and is designed to suspend Proposition 32 that was signed into law 2006. As you know, back in 2006, the unemployment rate was 4.8%. Today, the unemployment rate is 12.3% in California. This measure is not designed to stop the global warming initiative. This measure is designed to suspend. It is designed to suspend it until our unemployment rate drops below 5.5 for 4 quarters in a row. That has happened 3 times since 1979. The studies that have been done on economic impacts of global warming have been as such. The University of San Carlos in Spain came out with a study that showed for every green job that was created, they lost 2 jobs, and that for every green job they created in Spain, it cost the taxpayers $750,000 per job. So the real issue here today is that can we afford, as Californians, at the economic crisis that we're in right now, to be the only state in the union, the only state in the world, to have draconian regulations that are so overwhelming on regulation of our businesses to actually drive more businesses out of California. Varsity just did a study on the impact of AB 32, and his study showed that over 1 million jobs will be lost. So the bottom line is this, is you're going to look at me and say, you know what, these are studies, and for every study you have, we have another study, and that may be the case, but the bottom line is this is not the time to experiment. This is the time to step away from the issue for a moment and to allow our economy to heal. Ladies and gentlemen, I will say this, that we cannot fund our schools, we cannot pave our roads, we cannot build our levees if jobs continue to leave the state of California. We are in an economic crisis. We need to suspend certain regulations for a period of time until we heal our state. And I believe that this is the time that we need to take a look. The world is watching. They want to know if we will take the steps that will be drastic enough to save this state economically. And I will say this, I am all for renewable energy. I want you to know that. I think it's great. But if I have to spend $750,000 to create a job, I'm going to be against it. I believe that we can transition into renewable energy and we can work with the gray economy at the same time. There's no reason to cut our nose off in spite of our faces. There's no reason for California to go it alone. And I believe that this is the defining moment for this state. This is the message that we will send out to all the working families in this state to say, you know what, we get it. We are standing with you. And we do not want to take a chance on the economy of California getting worse. Varsity even said that if AB 32 is implemented, the net gross loss is over $187 billion a year. CARB's own economic scoping plan is insufficient based upon our own LAO office. We don't have the facts to jump off this bridge. Ladies and gentlemen, we need more facts. We need to protect businesses. And I have some people here today who have paid the price of overregulation in California, and I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Jeff Lashley.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to come to you and speak to you today. My name is Jeff Lashley, and I'm a former director of a domestic and international forest products trading group and manufacturer of forest products in the United States. My industry was devastated by California Air Resources Board formaldehyde rules on composite panels. This ended my career after 24 years. Prior to that, I was a former EPA scientist working through the state of Montana, running the EPA system in the state. And we were in charge of rules and regulations, environmental investigations, and the science behind it. Now, I am out of a job. And before I say that, here's my credentials from the U.S. EPA, carrying federal credentials, regulating federal laws in the environment. I've been in the environmental industry as a forester, as my degree is, all my life. And I've not only helped the United States in terms of environment, I've also helped China, Brazil, Russia, Malaysia, Indonesia, and many, many other countries in implementing FSC, Forest Service Council, the LEAD initiative, Leadership in Environmental Engineering Design. We have educated Chinese on how to manufacture properly using our techniques. In America, bottom line, I'm out of a job, out of a career after 24 years. I have been looking for 13 months on every internet site I can come up with, every headhunter in California and across the state. And in 1 year, I have got 5 jobs that I've seen on the internet, and environmental green jobs. There is none. Absolutely none. I had one person out of Sacramento here who owns a solar company, I won't say the name, called me back and offered me a job. I have 24 years as an international commodity trader and a director of a $200-300 million company, and a former scientist with the EPA and the Montana system. He offered me a job going door to door selling solar panels and solar systems for houses, and he could not pay me a salary. All there was work for some stock options. That was his salary. A person like me, who used to make in between $100,000 a year, and some of the people in our industry were making up to $1 million a year. Now I'm reduced to going door to door, selling Fuller Brush, and I hate to say Fuller Brush, but it's basically the same idea. A person like me, who deals with Russians in Moscow, and their dignitaries, with Chinese, with Brazilians, with people in Washington, D.C., and all over the United States, this is what I can expect for a job the rest of my career, going door to door, selling solar systems for a company for no salary.
Can you,
Thank you, Mr. Robinson, Lowell Robinson.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being able to come here. My name is Lowell Robinson. I'm in Nevada City, California. I'm in the timber business and the service station business. AB 32 is about to sink us. We generally use 150 plus people a year. In 09, we're down to about 50 a year, and we'd be lucky. The year that's coming up right now looks like it's going to be the worst condition that I've ever seen in 61 years, and I've been trying for a long time. One of the things that is AB 32 has done, and just for example, truck engines. Caterpillar Tractor Company, of which is the one builds one of the best engines in the world, has quit making truck engines because they can't satisfy California. We were unlucky enough to try and keep up with the environmental movement and bought 11 new trucks. Them 11 new trucks are down at 10% of the time. They won't run. Caterpillar, and they have Caterpillar engines in them. And like I say, Caterpillar has quit making them. One of the things that I think that AB 18 would give us just a little bit of time to do this. I also ask you people that Rome wasn't built in a day, And we can't make these changes as fast as they're doing it. We need a little bit more time, and if we're going to have a few people, more people on the payroll, we need to do it. I've got people who have been out of work for a year and a half on unemployment, and they've run out. They don't know which way to go. And some of them have been, the only place they've worked in their life is our company in my years of operation. So we need to put this off and give us a little bit of time to make this thing work. We can make it work, but we can't do it overnight. Thank you.
Mr. Pardini.
Thank you all for having us here. I'm Jeff Pardini. I represent two building material industry stores in Northern California, Hills Flat Lumber. We're the third generation. It's been in business since 1921. Just to start off with, I am all for environmental and green power. Both our stores have large solar systems, and we also run geothermal in our Grass Valley store, which is a ground source heat sink. So it's not that I'm against that, but I'm in support of AB 118. We have a situation here where instead of cleaning the engines through manufacturing and selling new vehicles, we're throwing these charges and changes onto small business. For the trucks we have, in order just to put the particulate filters on, is $150,000. We currently in Northern California employ 100 people. The last few years have been pretty much zero profit. In order to fund these new filters we need to put on, you're looking at probably six jobs that we'll have to let people go in order to fund this. There have not been any bailout packages for the building materials industry, the logging industry, home construction at all. You know what? We're doing this on our own. We've made the cuts we need to. We have banking relationships we need to have, but quite honestly right now there's no funding available. Even if we wanted to borrow this money at this point to do this, it's not going to happen. Anyway, to sum it up, as with Lowell and Dan, I think it makes sense to suspend this at least till we can get back on our feet. The state is suffering, especially in the building materials industry, and I think that having a little bit of time and let this make sense instead of throwing it on us in probably the worst economy we've had in 40, 50 years makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Logue. Other witnesses in opposition in support, excuse me, can just come up to that mic and indicate your name and affiliation and just indicate your support, but there's no commentary right now. We've had our witnesses.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. My name is Dorothy Rothrock with the California Manufacturers and Technology Association, and our position is actually support if amended. If I could take 30 seconds. We suggest that the legislature should take action this year in providing guidance on AB 32. There are huge major decisions being made at ARB with regard to implementing this bill. It was passed 5 years ago. We think the connection should be with whether the federal government has taken action on climate rather than the employment rate. We think especially with cap and trade, with an expensive auction, we need to make sure the federal government has also acted. Thank you.
Cindy Hillary, Regional Council of Rural Counties, in support. Our letter went out late on Friday by fax, so I brought a copy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Gregg, representing the California League of Food Processors. We're also in support. Thank you.
James Judd, President of J&M Manufacturing in Cotati. I support 118. We've also lost over 30 jobs at our manufacturing facility that paid over $30,000 a year. This is about jobs, folks. Start thinking about it.
Shirley Freeman, unemployed citizen of California, unemployed for the first time in 25 years. And I am for AB 118. Please, we need jobs, not more regulation.
Jim Ricketts with the Independence Caucus. I have been an engineer and a construction manager for 35 years. I started about 10 years ago specializing in the green energy.
My apologies to interrupt, but if I would allow everyone to do this, and I've just asked for you to please indicate.
I am in support, strong support of AB 118. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Todd Bloomstein on behalf of the Southern California Contractors Association. In support of AB 118, the industry's lost 309,000 jobs since 2006. Thank you.
Kevin Pedrati, representing the Engineering and Utility Contractors Association, in support of the bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members, John Handley with the California Independent Grocers Association, in strong support of the measure.
I'm William B. Stecker, author and blogger, and I support 118. Thank you.
Yes, my name's Steve Cavolt, small business owner, and I would just ask the committee to use some common sense. There's a lot of jobs that have been lost, and you're going to lose a lot more. So I would just ask that you look at that, because it is a job killer. Thank you.
Del Rapini Construction. I had to lay my son off because we're so slow. We need jobs.
George Riley, I'm a pre-tax law student at Sac State University. I'm very much in strong support of Measure 118. I think that when we find that we've done a mistake in the past initiative, that it's good that we set this precedent by repealing it. Thank you.
I'm Allison Olson. I'm the legislative advocate for the California Federation of Republican Women, and we stand in support of this bill. Thank you.
I'm Eric Eisenhammer of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. We are strongly in support of AB 118 and California jobs.
Hi, I'm Pam Pinkston. I'm a 62-year resident of the state of California, and I'm afraid for my state. I support 118. Please save our jobs for our children and our grandchildren and everybody else. Thank you.
You can. The line can move closer.
I'm Tim Snipes. I'm a small business owner in strong support of AB 118 because I want to keep my business.
My name is Robert Jarvis. I'm a retired military, currently unemployed clerical worker for Solano County. I support 118, not so much for my own sake, but for the sake of the young people in the state that are trying to make a living.
I'm Bob Myers. I strongly support 118. I'd really hate to see California end up like Greece with no credit rating.
Hello, my name is Mike Giles, a secondary art teacher in this general area. I'm speaking in great concern about the prosperity of my students and their parents and their families, all of which is deteriorating at this point. Thank you.
John Stoos, representing People's Advocate. We are strongly in support of AB 118.
Eric Carlson, Associated California Loggers, support. Mr. Robinson is trying to provide rural jobs right now. Thank you.
Kirk Blackburn on behalf of the California Dump Truck Owners Association, in support.
Charles Greenlaw, Greenlaw Brothers Engineering and Forest Land, strong support.
Cindy Taylor. I am unemployed. I was laid off my job about a year ago with a green architect firm, and I'm strongly in support of AB 118. We need our jobs. It's drastic. Thank you.
Mike Roulette, a private citizen real estate appraiser. You don't want to kill jobs right now, and that's a good enough reason not to go forward with this global warming initiative, because global warming is not a fact.
Again, I'm going to interrupt because I've asked people to just indicate their.
Said before, and find a way to make it profitable.
Thank you. Next witness. Next witness.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susie Ivantosh. I'm a Colfax resident, freelance writer, and a small business owner, and I strongly support AB 118. More regulation does not necessarily mean better.
Bob Stearns from the Association of California Car Clubs, strongly support 118.
Dale Morgan, Libertarian candidate for Assembly District 5, strongly in support of 118.
My name is Dr. Lee O. Welter. I support Assembly Bill 118 and strongly favor repealing SB 32 completely. Carbon dioxide is vital to life. We need to look at the hard science, which has been ignored.
My name is Ione Sanders. I'm a registered voter and a taxpayer, and I support 118.
Hi, my name is Jim Sanders, and I support AB Bill 118. I have two sons that are unemployed and a grandson that's unemployed, and I'm running out of funds. So, thanks.
Vic Refstead, Grass Valley, California. I represent Roman Angels Car Club, and we strongly support this bill.
Thank you. All right, so we will now hear from our witnesses in opposition. And again, we'll have 3 primary witnesses at 3 minutes each. And this is in opposition to 118. And then we'll hear from anybody else who's in opposition in the same manner that we just did, coming up to the mic.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair and members. Reed Addis on behalf of CalSTART. Appreciate you giving us an opportunity to talk here today. We are in opposition to AB 118. It's rather ironic that we have to be in opposition to AB 118. Not too many years ago, we were in strong support of a measure called AB 118. It was a bill passed by this legislature and signed by the governor that supported programs to incentivize fuel and technology manufacturing here in the state of California. And that program is rolling out right now at the CEC. Those are the right types of things to be doing in the state right now, not passing AB 118. Private investors are not stupid. They know where to spend their money most of the time, and they have been investing in the state of California because of AB 32. AB 32 has a commitment from private dollars because they're creating new companies here in the state, and with each company, we're creating a whole new supply chain, many jobs. The CalSTART has identified within its own transportation technology field over 200 new companies since the onslaught of AB 32. And we have also identified that 40% of the U.S. clean tech investments, the entire U.S. clean tech investments, are made here in California, creating jobs now because of AB 32. California is a first mover. It's a concept that when we're the lead, people come here, talent comes here, and jobs come here, and all of that comes here because of new investments from dollars. Passing a piece of legislation like this, AB 118, has an extreme chilling effect. And that chilling effect will stop the new investments from coming into California, stop the development of new jobs, wreak havoc with the supply chains, and basically ruin all the efforts we've had so far with AB 32. With that, we oppose, and thank you for giving us some time.
Good afternoon. Ann Nodoff with the Natural Resources Defense Council. And we are in opposition to AB 118, along with members of groups that have submitted a letter to the committee representing nearly 1 million Californians. AB 118 would impose economic harm on California just as the state is struggling to regain our economic footing. The program to implement AB 32 has a very thoughtful, phased-in schedule, and it also relies on many long-standing tested programs that have produced savings for California, such as energy efficiency and renewable resource development. And those programs have a record of saving Californians millions of dollars through efficiencies, and can also be the key to development of new jobs, as we've already started seeing, even since the law was passed and hasn't even been fully implemented yet. So I think that rather than stopping economic development and job creation, as 118 would do. I think that defeating AB 118 would help us keep moving forward with job creation and economic development. Thank you.
Madam Chair, committee members, Bill McGavin with Sierra Club, California, in opposition to AB 118. The Global Warming Solutions Act was a very good idea when it was passed in 2006. It's even a better idea and more important now in 2010. Let's remember what California has at stake, what we stand to lose with global warming: rising sea levels, shrinking snowpack, more tropical diseases migrating north.
Hey, folks, keep quiet. You can't even go up. Go ahead.
In addition to those impacts, we will see more frequent heat waves, worse air pollution, causing increased illness and death among Californians. We have a lot to gain, on the other hand, by implementing the programs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In addition to slowing climate change, we also will improve our public health by reducing air pollution in California. We'll reduce our energy insecurity problem by increasing the diversity of our energy sources. One example of why California's leadership in addressing global warming has already benefited the state is in the United States national government now adopting essentially California's standards for reducing greenhouse gas emissions from motor vehicles. So instead of us being left alone or somehow disadvantaged by taking leadership, the opposite is true. California takes the lead, the rest of the country follows, and that means that soon our consumers will be able to buy vehicles that will go further on a gallon of gas, and not long after that, be able to buy vehicles that don't even use gasoline as their primary energy source. Finally, opinion surveys by respected nonpartisan outfits like the Public Policy Institute of California have demonstrated that public support for the Global Warming Solutions Act remains strong, and therefore we urge you to vote no on this bill.
Are you at the table to speak in opposition to Assemblymember Logue's bill?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, then.
Yes, Charlie Peters, Clean Air Performance Professionals. We represent a coalition of motorists. We very strongly oppose this bill unless something can be done to provide some performance from Smog Check. The state of California has funded a report with the Air Resources Board and the Bureau of Automotive Repair funding it that has been on hold for several years. The report became final in March of this year. Public funded report, and the public can't even see it, and it's being used for implementation of affecting people's cars in this state. So if we can't do something to fix what we have, it's inappropriate to just throw up our hands and say we give up. We need to do something that affects California's air and improves it. We need some help, your help, to get this report released and to do something that's meaningful.
So now, if there's any other witnesses in opposition to Mr. Logue's bill, they get to just introduce themselves and indicate they're in opposition.
Randy Hicks, California Alliance for Retired Americans, in strong opposition.
Thank you.
Crystal Molenkamp on behalf of Bloom Energy, a California-born and raised innovation and manufacturing company, in strong favor of AB 32 and opposed to this measure. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Paul Mason with the Pacific Forest Trust. Since so much of the comment this morning or earlier focused on the forest industry, I thought it might be useful to note that while it has been a brutal few years in California's forest industry, combating global warming is one of the few bright spots, and we've actually...
You can submit comments and write to us, but if I allow you to go on, then I would be unfair to the former.
Lori Chan on behalf of Clean Water Action, in opposition.
Chris Rosa representing the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, in opposition.
Justin Milan with California League of Conservation Voters, very much in opposition.
Louis Bloomberg with the Nature Conservancy, in opposition.
Kim Delfino with Defenders of Wildlife, in opposition.
Rico Mastrodonato with the Trust for Public Land, in opposition.
Luke Bright with Forest Forever, in opposition.
Tom Addison with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, in opposition.
Bonnie Holmes-Jen, representing the American Lung Association in California, also strongly opposed.
Lori Sinsley, Environmental Defense Fund, strongly opposed.
Dan Taylor, Audubon, California, also in strong opposition.
Matt Vanderslice, Planning and Conservation League, also opposed.
Nidia Bautista with the Coalition for Clean Air, also in opposition. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, members' questions before we ask Mr.
Well, I
Lewis.
actually, coming from timber country, representing Humboldt, Mendocino, Trinity, Del Norte counties, I'd like to try to complete Paul Mason's thought if I can. Not that I can read his mind, but I can guess at what he was going to say. And that is that in a time when the collapse in the housing industry has pretty much caused the timber industry to grind to a halt, one of the things that is created hope for forest landowners to keep their land in forest production in the hopes of being there available to produce timber when the economy recovers is the potential for receiving some revenue because of the contribution that growing forests can make to sequestering carbon. And so it is one of the areas of hope amongst forest landowners that the AB 32 is going to move towards assisting their long-term ability to stay in business.
We have a motion from Vice Chair Gilmore for the bill and a second by Assemblymember Knight. Other questions by members? Yes, Vice Chair Gilmore, go ahead, comment.
Just a comment. I can say my first year in office, I have not this bill has generated more phone calls from the Central Valley than any bill that I've had, and I strongly support this bill. I think it's exactly what we need to move our economy forward, and commend Assemblymember Logue for carrying the bill.
Assemblymember Knight.
I'll say a few things. Everybody's been calling my office too. You can stop. I second it. Here's my problem with AB 32. I am sure that the committee knew when AB 32 came through in 2005 and 2006 this was going to hurt jobs. I'm sure that happened. I'm sure that everyone who voted for AB 32 knew that it was going to have an effect on jobs. There's a difference in philosophy here. So I think you're seeing that with AB 118. We're trying to correct a measure. They're trying to correct something that was wrongly voted on, in my opinion.
Before you close, I wanted to, perhaps you'll have a response. Committee members who joined us knew that in December we had a hearing where now obviously we didn't have every business in California represented, but we had some very, very interesting business people speak at the informational hearing, most of whom had a very opposite of experience than what we heard in the testimony in support of Assemblymember Logue's bill. And the testimony that we received at that informational hearing was about the venture capital that is coming into California around clean tech, green tech, growth of green jobs, and how California, as another witness indicated, has received close to 50% of the entire venture capital invested in that area in all of North America, not just U.S., but North America. And that 2008 hit the high, that there's never been a year with more venture capital being invested, which goes against all the other economic indicators. We also had a couple of academics give us some testimony on some recent reports that showed while it certainly does not compensate for the serious, serious unemployment that our state is experiencing right now, and it is serious, and I completely appreciate those of you who have businesses and have had to cut back or lose people, those of you who are out of jobs, those of you who have lost jobs in this economy. We are seeing it, yes, very seriously in California and throughout the country. But interestingly, what these recent studies have shown is that one of the only sectors where there was job growth, not enough, but where there was job growth, was in this clean tech and green job space. And the other comment I wanted to make is that the bill, AB 32, has, and I was not in the assembly when it was passed, but it has a provision in it that allows the governor to suspend its implementation if it is causing economic harm. And the governor was, and you can find this interview online on the San Diego Union Tribune's website, where the reporter asked the governor, why has he not suspended AB 32? And basically the governor responded that he sees policy signals, not AB 32 alone, but the policy signals that California has enacted in relationship to incentivizing energy efficiency, incentivizing renewable energy, incentivizing clean technologies, incentivizing alternative fuels and such, that he sees that as where the venture capital is coming in. He sees that as where the job growth has occurred, and that it would be completely contrary to our economic recovery, to our state's economic recovery, to suspend it at this time. Now, the only other thing that perhaps I would ask the question about is, and I appreciate the testimony of those of you who support Assemblymembers Logue's bill, though much of what you cited, it's my understanding that the regulations you are citing are regulations that have not been enacted as a result of AB 32. They've been enacted by the Air Resources Board as a response to air quality issues, and not at all in response to the greenhouse gas. And in fact, to date, the Air Resources Board, the only regulation that they've put into effect under AB 32 is the mandatory reporting by large emitters. All of the other ones you indicated were not enacted as a result of AB 32. And I wonder, Mr. Logue, if you could respond as whether is there a specific regulation that has now been enacted as a result of AB 32 that you have a particular concern about? Or is this more a concern about the future?
The future is really the key. We are the most overregulated state in the country. Varsity studies show that our overregulation in California is costing us $500 billion a year. The studies in Spain also show that for every green job you create, we lose 2 jobs. And the reason that's important is you will have venture capitalists in California because we're the only state that's willing to take this on. And the problem is the rest of the states are standing back saying, we don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. And so my dad used to say, it's always easier to say yes with a gun in your mouth than no. And that's what's happening to business in California. We are being led to the slaughter by overregulation. And so the venture capitalists are coming in to make money off of green technology, which will increase our energy costs by 2 to 3 times more. What that will do, in essence, and from my experience in Reno, Nevada, when we met with 100 businesses over there, half of the businesses in Reno, Nevada were green jobs. They were green businesses. And the reason they said they were in Nevada rather than California is because California overregulated them. And the cost of doing business in California is too expensive. So my concern is that we take a hard look at this. One more thing that the study did say, Madam Speaker, is that in Spain, when they looked at the total volume of new green jobs, that the target was 90% short, and the jobs were part-time or entry level. So economically, we will have green jobs come here, but the problem is Spain is building all the solar panels in China, and we can't compete because of the regulation costs. So I'm not saying stop AB 32. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I embrace green technology. I embrace renewable technology, but 99% of it is subsidized. And that money's coming from taxpayers. And the taxpayers are saying, you know what? If this is so good for us, why do we have to subsidize it? That's the problem that we have. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do we have any other questions or comments by members before we ask Assemblymember Logue to do his close? We'll ask you to do your close.
Sorry. Thank you.
Is there any other?
I was just going to say, not just as a state, but as a country, when we face a looming crisis or disaster, we don't run away from it. When fascism was trying to take over the world in the late 1930s and the early 40s, we didn't say, well, we got a depression, so we can't afford it. When we have a forest fire in this state, we don't say we got a budget deficit, so we can't go put the fire out. We have a pending disaster for the world in front of us in the form of climate change. And while I think we need to do it right, and I think we need to do it in a way that supports the economy and doesn't take away from it, and I think that the point's well taken, but we can't stop progressing. I think how we do it is very important, but whether we do it is not an option. We absolutely must engage in this fight for future generations and make sure that it's also an essential element in our economic recovery.
Assemblymember Hill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And you really, I think, articulated well the issues that were raised. A lot of the comments that were mentioned, we're dealing with issues that aren't related to AB 32. The Caterpillar issue and the company there, I mean, that would be the diesel off-road rule that had to do with air quality and diesel particulate and not with AB 32. And the poor credit rating that we have in the state, that may be due to poor fiscal management on the part of the state, but certainly not the result of AB 32. And the overregulations that you were talking about, Dan, is certainly could be there in certain instances, but let's look at those particular instances. And just by holding, stopping, temporarily restricting the implementation or AB 32 moving forward, I think would be wrong. And but I appreciate my good friend Dan Logue's bringing this issue forward. I mean, it's always worth discussing an issue that is so important as AB 32 and so important for the economy. And I think that the jobs that we're creating, the benefit that will be derived, and as Assemblymember Chesbro said, we can't wait for it. We can't suspend something. This is similar to, not because of the urgency of it, but you could almost say during World War II when Franklin Roosevelt suspended our rights to some extent for the incarceration and the internment of Japanese Americans, that there was an emergency, so we take this action. Well, we know today that's not the action that's appropriate, nor is it the right action. And I think in looking at this, it's not the right time to make that type of step. But I certainly agree. We have to look at everything we're doing and re-look at it to make sure that we're following the right path and doing what we can to improve the economy and create the jobs that will keep and sustain this great state of ours. So I'll be voting against the bill, but thank you, Assemblymember Logue.
Thank you. Assemblymember Huffman.
Just very quickly, Madam Chair, I want to make it very clear that I care about jobs. This is not an issue where you have one side that cares about jobs and another side that does not, and I want to push back in a big way to those who have attempted to frame it in that very misleading way. I think AB 32 is a jobs and investment engine. I think it's going to be an even bigger one going forward, and I can't imagine anything more disruptive to our economy, to the investments, to the new business starts that are being made right now. They're going to be the foundation for, I think, a very hopeful economic recovery than to pull the rug out from under them by changing this very hopeful public policy. So in the name of jobs and economic recovery, I'm going to oppose this bill, and I like Mr. Logue a lot. He told me today to show him some love, and I told him the best I can do is love this bill to death, and that's what I hope to do. So.
Thanks a lot. Well, thank you. I do want to say, Mr. Huffman, I do want to respond to that the people in the audience, you have a job, and you have a job working for government. These people work in the private sector, and these people pay my salary. And so I think it's important to note that these people who create wealth are the ones that are the heroes of this state, because this building is built by them. Number two, the Rasmussen poll came out just last month, and it showed 71% of the people want economic recovery, and only 15% wanted global warming mitigation. With your permission, I'd like to read one paragraph if I can. The permission is this. This is what it says concerning climate change, and I think we should all bear in mind how desperate the situation is. There is ominous signs that the Earth's weather patterns have begun to change dramatically. Now, these changes may portend a drastic decline in food production with serious political implications for every nation on Earth. That was written in 1975 when it was called The Coming Ice Age in Newsweek magazine. And my point today is this, is that I have a list here of 31,000 scientists that say there is not a global warming issue. On the other side, you have thousands of scientists that say there are. I respect both sides. I'm not a scientist, so I'm not here to say there is, and I'm not here to say there isn't. But I know one thing. I know that if global warming is so great for this state, well, why do we have among the highest unemployment rate in the nation? And that all I'm asking today is that we step away from this just for a moment and say to the country, you know what, we're not going to go it alone. We're going to do this as a nation together. And if there's a cap and trade bill passed in Congress, then we're going to get on board with it, just like every other state. But I cannot ask these businesses to do something that nobody else in the country will do. And by the way, carbon emissions are increasing primarily because we no longer manufacture in California because of our regulations in AB 32. They're being manufactured in China with coal power plants, and they're the ones that are benefiting from this global warming theory. So I would urge you to support this and know that this is not an anti-grain legislation. It's not an anti-global warming legislation. This is a pro-jobs legislation. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Logue. So we now have a motion on the floor in support of the bill.
One last
Yes,
rhetorical question. Have you checked Nevada's unemployment rate lately?
Can I comment on that? Nevada.
Sorry, we won't.
Well, its job growth is 120%. Ours is 19. So thank you.
Okay, we'll leave that one alone. He said unemployment, not job growth. Anyway, we will move to a vote. I just wanted to indicate that it was received in the briefing that the chair did a recommendation of no in opposition to the bill, and I just wanted to assure our committee members that this is the committee that has oversight of CARB's implementation of AB 32, and I certainly take your intention and the witnesses today that you want to make sure that in our implementation, which has not really fully begun yet, is only in a scoping, and as I indicated so far, we have not enacted regulations due to AB 32, but as we do proceed, we will take very, very seriously that oversight charge, and we will monitor, because I think, and I have heard loud and clear from all of the members in the committee that not only every member of the committee, but the entire legislature is committed to California's economic recovery and essentially to job growth. And so as we implement AB 32 and as this committee has that oversight responsibility, we will monitor it very carefully. So we will ask for the roll to be called.
Skinner.
No.
Skinner, no. Gilmore.
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Brownlee. No. Brownlee, no. Chesbro. No. Chesbro, no. De Leon. Hill. No. Hill, no. Huffman. No. Huffman, no. Knight.
Yes.
Knight, aye. Logue.
Yes.
Logue, aye.
The bill did not go out.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. We will now move to our next bill. It is, or we do the AGR first. It is Mr. Chesbro's AGR 26.
Yeah, hopefully they sharpen it up a little bit.
Yes, Mr. Chesbro, you may start.
Yes, Madam Chair. Speaking of the effects
We could have
of...
it quiet. You're certainly welcome to speak out in the hall.
Thank you for allowing me to present on AGR 26 and here to talk about the net effects of climate change. Before we get started, I'd like to ask the committee to accept and adopt the author's amendments to the resolution. The amendments are reflected in the committee's analysis. This joint resolution urges the United States Congress, as it contemplates how to address climate change at the national level, to create a comprehensive plan and funding for states to address climate change impacts. We know that climate change is already affecting California in major ways. Sea levels have risen by as much as 7 inches along the California coast over the last century. These impacts are increasing erosion, degrading water quality, and threatening fish and marine life and their food webs in ways that we are just beginning to fully understand. California understands the importance of addressing climate change. The Natural Resources Agency, in coordination with other state agencies, has recently developed the state's first strategy to identify and prepare for these occurring and expected climate change impacts. It's imperative to urge Congress to support state strategies to address climate change impacts and fund the implementation for the health of our precious natural resources and our coastal communities that depend on these natural resources. And I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. We'll hear from your witnesses in support.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of AJR 26, and we would like to thank Senator Chesbro for authoring this important resolution. As he pointed out, impacts from climate change are already being felt here in California. In addition, we've seen change to the ones he mentioned. We've seen a rise in the mean temperature of 1.7 degrees and changes in our water cycle in terms, including melting of the snow earlier. No matter how successful our efforts are to reduce emissions, we will continue to have impacts on our environment and on our way of life, and they will become more intense. We need to respond and to ensure that the natural resources upon which life depends will persist in the future. In addition to the reasons that Senator Chesbro mentioned, we believe AJR is important and needed to help the state respond effectively and comprehensively to climate change. It's needed to alert the Congress that California legislature is concerned about mitigating the impacts from greenhouse gas emissions. And AJR 26 is also needed to make sure that California can capture federal funds when they are generated by the pending federal climate legislation. Currently, federal legislation in both the House and the Senate contain provisions that would allow federal dollars to flow to states that have natural resource adaptation plans. And so by passing this resolution, California will position itself first in line to capture these federal dollars. So in summary, the state has a California adaptation strategy. As was mentioned, it positions us to use these funds effectively. It will help us to ensure that our high-quality water supply is maintained through watershed protection. It will help us to protect public safety by reducing the risk of wildfire. It will help us to promote food security by protecting our crops. It will help us create green jobs through watershed restoration projects, and it will help protect our coast, as mentioned before, and including the 500,000 low-income residents that are threatened from sea level rise. I thank you for your support of this resolution and urge your aye vote.
Good afternoon. My name is Kim Delfino, and I'm the California Director for Defenders of Wildlife. We're a national organization representing 500,000 members nationwide, about 125,000 here in California. My organization has worked very long and hard to start to begin to address the issue of adaptation, helping our wildlife and natural resources so we can make a transition even in the face of reductions in global warming emissions. We think we strongly support AJR 26 because we believe it would send an important signal to Congress that they have to act now to provide the necessary funding and planning to tackle one of the most important challenges we have in front of us for wildlife conservation. We think that with the California Adaptation Strategy that has just recently been adopted by the Resource Agency and the State Wildlife Action Plan, which has been in effect for a few years now and is being revised to incorporate climate change, that our state is well positioned to capture federal funding when it becomes available with the passage of cap and trade legislation. And so for those reasons, we believe it's important for California to signal again to Congress that we need to move this cap and trade legislation and include dedicated funding for wildlife resource adaptation and planning. And for those reasons, we urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Crystal Mullenkamp on behalf of Audubon, California. For the reasons well stated by my colleagues and the Assembly member, we are pleased to sponsor this joint resolution and urge your aye vote.
Thank you.
Randy Hicks with the California Alliance for Retired Americans in strong support.
Thank you.
Jennifer West on behalf of the Sonoma County Water Agency in strong support.
Paul Mason with Pacific Forest Trust also would support and appreciate the Senator's efforts.
Lori Chen with Clean Water Action in support.
Matt Vanderslice, Planning and Conservation League, and representing the National Wildlife Federation, also in support, and thank the author for his author amendments today.
Luke Bright, representing Forest Forever, in support.
All right. Are there any witnesses in opposition? All right. So is your motion to move it as amended? Thank you. Would you like to close, Assemblymember Chesbro?
Ask for your aye vote.
All right, thank you. And I think this is very important to make sure that that we're also being careful about what we call is the adaptation to, because if you just take our airports, all of California's major airports, their runways are at sea level. And if we have the very minimal, either flooding or very, very minimal sea level rise, we can put that economic activity. So we. I was going to get really. Perhaps I will be a job creator. I hope not. But certainly, we have to be cognizant of that. And also, California, as being the major agricultural producer, we need to continue to have a thriving agricultural sector in our state, and we're not yet clear what effects of changes in our precipitation, changes in snowpack, changes in temperature, all of that will do to our agricultural, and certainly we need help from the feds in terms of adapting so that we can still retain the kind of economic competitiveness that we've had. So I appreciate this introduction, and we will do a roll call.
Skinner?
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Gilmore? Gilmore not voting. Brownlee? Aye. Brownlee, aye. Chesbro?
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. De Leon? Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Huffman? Huffman, aye. Knight? Logue.
So the bill is out of committee. So thank you. Or the resolution. So our next item before the committee is AB 1504, the Carbon Sink Act, of which I am the author, so I will change places. Actually, I should have put it differently. It is a committee bill.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Vice Chair, members, AB 1504 requires the California Department of Forestry to assess whether its existing programs and regulations are sufficient to meet or exceed the greenhouse gas reduction goals that are set forth in the AB 32 scoping plan. And I am accepting the committee amendments which move up the reporting deadlines that are mentioned in the analysis, though these amendments will be adopted in approps because we don't have the full language yet. Now, while the California Department of Forestry has already committed to prepare this assessment, it has made little progress since first proposing to do so last May. So at the same time, in a parallel regulatory proceeding, the department has already concluded that its rules are adequate to meet these goals, but it did not provide supporting evidence. So that raises the concern that the department may not be in the best position to assess its own regulations in terms of whether they're adequate to meet this. So what AB 1504 does is subject the assessment to an independent academic peer review and public review. And if you think about AB 32, the bill we debated just in great detail a few minutes ago, how it was designed is that many of its reports require independent academic review. So I think that doing this within the California Department of Forestry's regs is keeping it somewhat in sync and parallel. So given the role that forests can play in combating climate change, it's critical that the legislature and the public be reliably informed about the capability of our department's regulations and programs to meet these goals and whether any changes are necessary to ensure that our forests can continue to meet the goals, but also provide high-quality timber products and ecosystem values for the long term. So we'll have our witnesses speak.
Good afternoon. Paul Mason for the Pacific Forest Trust in support of the bill. Under AB 32 in the scoping plan, it calls for at least 5 million metric tons of carbon reductions to be coming from the forest sector. And indeed, the forest sector is just about the only area where we're actually reducing the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. So we're all very optimistic that we can get at least that 5 million metric tons. But there is the real question of how well do the existing regulations achieve that goal. And there are almost certainly small tweaks that can be made to the way information around timber harvesting is gathered and reported that would better inform the overall framework of AB 32. And to their credit, the Interagency Forestry Working Group has indicated that they want to move in this direction. Thus far, the progress there has been less than may have been intended. Given how important it is that we actually improve the information that we have about how forestry is going to achieve the goals of AB 32, we think it's entirely appropriate for the legislature to be providing some oversight on something that the administration has indicated is an appropriate idea, and providing a clear avenue for the public to be involved in reviewing that information.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Louis Bloomberg with the Nature Conservancy. We are here in support of AB 1504 and I'd like to thank the committee chair for her leadership on this bill. Forests can be part of the problem and part of the solution when it comes to climate change. Forest loss globally accounts for about 17% of annual greenhouse gas emissions. But as Mr. Mason pointed out, forests can also remove carbon from the atmosphere and store it. We here in California with the old-growth redwood forests have some of the most carbon-rich forests on the planet. In fact, we call them the Fort Knox of forest carbon. So what's critically important is to really understand what's really happening. And what this bill does is it will help the state gather high-quality information on the forest inventory. And also, we think the bill is very important because it sets a date certain to have this information assembled and to evaluate it. And that's very important to move the process forward. So we think AB 1504 is a timely and valuable addition to our state's climate policy, and we urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Hi, Luke Bright with Forest Forever. We're pleased to be sponsors of this bill. And I just want to add to what's been said that there are groups, including the U.S. Forest Service, that fear that current California forest practices have a dangerous possibility of leading the state forest as a net emitter of carbon. And Ms. Skinner's bill helps ensure that we have some way of measuring whether California's forests are, as we all hope, net sequesters of carbon, giving us time to fix any problems before they overwhelm us. So thank you.
Sorry, those are in opposition to the bill?
Is there any other support?
Other support, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I'm dreaming and drifting up here. It's early in the session.
Matt Vanderslice, Planning and Conservation League, also in support.
Charles Greenlaw, Greenlaw Brothers Engineering and Forest Land. Strong support of the State Board of Forestry's expertise and integrity, indifferent to the bill. Thank you.
Any others in support? Those in opposition?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. Anthony Thomas, representing the California Forestry Association. First and foremost, we want to thank Madam Chairperson Skinner for her willingness to discuss this bill in detail as we went over it last week. We feel as if we've had a very productive discussion with the chair and understand the importance of her push for mitigating GHG and utilizing this bill 1504 as a vehicle. We also want to thank her consultant Dan Chaw for his involvement. In the bill's present form, our association position is one of neutrality. The bill acknowledges that forest sequesters carbon and is essential for climate change, and our members could not agree more. We do have some tweaks that we went over with the chair and the consultant last week, and we have expressed to the chair, and we expect to have those issues hopefully amended into the bill at some point in time. This bill is of great importance, members. This bill is of great importance to us as an industry, and it's critical to our hopes and dreams of sequestering carbon as our forests do. It's our hope that we can at some point place a support position on this bill because it is a vital piece of legislation. So again, at this point, the California Forestry Association is a position of neutral on AB 1504. And again, we want to thank Ms. Skinner for her involvement. Thank you very much.
My name's Bill Kai. I'm a registered professional forester, and I'm government affairs for California Licensed Foresters Association. We have a position of oppose unless amended on the bill. There are aspects of the bill that we certainly support. I think all of us in this room very likely are in support of and are glad that forestry is a positive sector as far as being a sink. The current estimates are 5 million metric tons a year, but in the bill is language that encourage to go beyond that, and we're in support of that. There are estimates that I've heard from various landowners that they believe that the actual amount that forestry can contribute is much higher than 5 million metric tons. So the intent of the bill is good. We did come out against the bill because we do have some concerns about a couple of major issues. One is the area of statutory conflict. The bill, in talking about the study, references a lot about the Department of Forestry, Department of Forestry. There is a Board of Forestry that oversees the Department of Forestry. And, for example, you've heard reference to the Interagency Forest Working Group. It was hampered last year. The executive officer, in his wisdom, before the furlough started, decided, everybody agreed that we're going to have our IFWG meetings on Fridays. So that was a good plan until mid-year, and then all of a sudden the bottom fell out. So they've been stalled, but they're back in business. They had a major presentation before the Board of Forestry last week. But really, if this bill goes forward, the language referring to the department really ought to be modified to reference the Board of Forestry. Another issue that we have is basically the question of necessity. We have an interagency forest working group. That's where the action is. I think that's where the action probably will remain. So we're unsure why we need this bill. The Interagency Forestry Working Group has 5 task groups. We've heard mention of inventory, and I also do the newsletter for California Licensed Foresters. So I made a note that Linda Murchison from the Air Board, they're going to be letting out a contract because this issue of inventory, there's lots of different views on forest inventory, so there's going to be a contract that the Air Board's going to let out, and she said that they'll be letting that out this spring with expected results by the end of 2011. And that's the commitment to the IFWG. Besides inventory, we have biomass and biofuels. A lot of that gets wrapped up into the whole sustainability issues. Many different viewpoints on that, and the Board of Forestry is the right place to adjudicate that. Landowner assistance, education, and also we've heard reference to the regulations, and all those are task groups that are already in place. So I suggest that staff or the author meet with the Board of Forestry and kind of get caught up on that process, and perhaps that could help improve the bill. I'll close with just a couple of pitches that in the letter that I submitted to the committee, I documented in a chart that California is not competing in par with our other sister states in the Pacific Northwest. So this is kind of the economic part of this, but according to the data that we cited, Oregon's industry from 99 to 2006 actually increased 13%, the productivity in terms of board feet. Washington declined 7%, California down 24%. And I would just remind members that this was during our recent housing boom. We're all having memories of that now because that's faded into the past. But we're just coming off of a big housing boom. During that period, our industry collapsed 24%. So things are not good. So,
Mr. Kai, we need to limit your comments to you're quite a bit over the time.
Okay,
allowed.
one more point. Another point would be that, and it's referenced in the letter, concerned about this issue, people ought to check out on the web, just type in deforested conditions, USDA Forest Service Region 5. We have hundreds of thousands of acres of public lands that have gone up in smoke and are currently brush fields.
Thank
you.
We have a motion to move the bill.
I'll second it.
Mr. Chesbro, second.
And I was going to move it and ask that I be at least a co-author, if not your principal co-author. I'll leave that up to you to decide where you'd like me in that on that list. And to say I'm certain that knowing you and having watched you chair this committee over the last year, that you will be working with the Forestry Association and the licensed professional foresters to try to move them from the neutral and the oppose unless amended column into the support column. So I really appreciate your work on this, coming, like I said earlier, coming from Timber Country.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Just one comment that I have. I'm Mr. Kai, is that correct?
Yes.
Touched on a couple of issues that and it was validated that it seems to me that there's kind of a redundancy here, and hopefully some the amendments that would be taken that would streamline this, and that we already have IFWG, which is already performing this task now, rather than it seems to me that we should be more streamlining than adding another layer of bureaucracy, if you will. So open the roll. You want to close your closing comments. I'm sorry.
The only thing I was going to add in my close is that some of the items that you raised are items that are far beyond the purview of this bill. This bill is only asking the Department of Forestry to make the assessment, which its forestry working group is, as you've indicated, engaged in. It just gives them a more accurate timeline to do so, is to make the assessment as to whether their current policies and practices will meet what the AB 32 scoping plan is expecting. It does not in any way ask the California Department of Forestry to change its policies or that's not the purpose of the bill. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Very good.
And I ask for your aye vote. And yes, I accept Mr. Chesbro as a
Open the roll.
co-author.
Did you have a comment? Sorry.
Skinner?
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Gilmore?
No.
Gilmore, no. Brownlee? Brownlee, aye. Chesbro? Chesbro, aye. De Leon? De Leon, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Huffman? Huffman, aye. Knight? Logue?
With the chair's permission, could we hold the roll open for Mr. Knight?
Of course.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. See you later. Okay, see you. Yeah. Great. Somehow I managed to get two pens, but one doesn't have a top. Okay. Great, yeah, just tell Marina that